And welcome to the finals here at Grand Prix Indianapolis 2017. Beautiful Indiana. I'm Ken Jagersher, joined in the booth by Marshall Sutcliffe. These players are ready to go.
So this is going to be a really classic control versus aggro matchup between these two players. Kyle Boggemes is going to be your aggressive player. He's playing a green-white aggressive deck that has creatures, combat tricks, and removal, and that's it. Andrew Cuneo on the other side has a little bit more of a mixed bag. You see he's got a card like Oketra's Avenger here, but he's also got like a sweeper and an 8-drop. Like, this is not your typical deck. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, if that Oketra's Avenger ends up blocking at some point during the course of this game, given the way that Andrew's deck plays. But this draw looks pretty good here. He's already got 6 power on the battlefield.
Yep, turn 2 Oketra's Avenger from Andrew, which already attacked into a solitary camel. Kyle on the draw with a turn 2 Mummy Paramount. Let's see if he can develop out his board a little bit further.
Yeah, Andrew also with some really good defensive cards, like he's got a Farm to Market. He's also got a Sandblast, which can help defend against some of the onslaught that he's going to be facing from Kyle as he moves forward. But like I said, he also has some different looks at this deck. Like I said, I didn't say this yet. He's got Essence Scatter and Illusory Wrappings as well. But he's got like Unwavering Initiate. He's got these 2 creatures that you see on the battlefield, plus an Adorn Pouncer in this deck.
Yeah.
So he can, turn it on. But at the same time, he's got these control cards that I mentioned before that, to Anointer Priest, right? Like the curve doesn't always come together quite this cleanly for Cuneo.
All right, turn 3, Unwavering Initiate for Kyle Boggemes. Andrew with Steadfast Sentinel. Actually pretty darn good in this particular matchup.
It actually does look good, yeah. Kyle has ways to get through it, but you know how that is. You use a combat trick or removal spell on it. It comes back a few turns later, bigger and better than ever, and then you have to do it all over again.
Yeah, Cuneo with actually another way to kind of outdo Kyle's deck. He has that Oketra's Monument with the double Anointer Priest that you were mentioning, so he can kind of go super wide with tokens and in the process gain a lot of life.
Yeah, that's right, and that could give him a pretty big buffer, as again, the cards that Kyle kind of tended to avoid were the higher variance but higher ceiling cards. He had 3 chances to take an Overcome, and in a deck like this where he's got kind of a bunch of vanilla creatures on the battlefield, that's the type of card that can put your deck over the top, but he doesn't like it. He says, I don't want that. He actually prefers Jarrow's Renunciation to it. He thinks that's a better option for this type of deck. So he didn't take any of them, and he's not running them, of course, as well. So, again, he's purposely sort of capped his power level for consistency's sake.
Turn 4, Kyle has Vizier of the True, one of the better cards in his deck, I would imagine.
Not bad, but with no exert besides itself, no attack at all from Kyle there.
Yeah, and Andrew actually similarly positioned in the way that Steve Rubin was against Kyle in the previous round. They both have similar creatures. They're both kind of attacking back and forth to one another. Life totals are pretty equal, but Andrew somewhat at the beatdown right now. You see the Steadfast Sentinel, as well as the Oketra's Avenger getting in, knocking Kyle down to 12. Andrew just, passing with 5 mana open in blue-white. No big deal.
No, what could possibly go wrong here? Kyle with a healthy 5 cards in hand.
All right, Kyle looks like he's going to line up attack here. Vizier exerting itself. Going to tap down the Steadfast Sentinel.
And that camel is very solitary at the moment. It's the only possible blocker.
Sadly, no desert for that camel.
Right, yeah. So he could trade it off for the Vizier of the True, though Andrew has to be suspicious about this. Still, it's probably the right play.
Yep, both players with a grip full of cards. And you mentioned this before, but now Cuneo doesn't need to react. It's Kyle that wants to save his creature.
Yeah, the way Magic works at a combat level is that the active player, the person who's attacking, has to decide first what they want to do, and that allows the defensive player to react to it. So Andrew just says, okay, I'll block like this, and Kyle now has to say, okay, I'll use a combat trick, and then Andrew can respond to it. So to avoid a blowout like that, Kyle just says, sure. And, that's a pretty profitable trade there for Andrew. You got rid of a premium card on the other side for a solitary camel that wasn't really doing a whole ton at the moment.
All right, Essence Scatter is going to take care of a Harrier Naga in Kyle's second main phase. And once again, Board position's pretty stable. Life totals very similar.
One thing that we'll note here as well, for those of you watching at home, the longer this game goes, the better it is for Andrew.
Right.
Again, Kyle doesn't have any big over-the-top plays. He doesn't have a way to draw an extra card in this deck. He can't draw, it's just whatever he draws is what he has to play with, and with no cards like Overcome, no bombs, he doesn't have any big 6-7 drops or something like that can just take over. He just has to get the job done with these consistent creatures, and so the longer the game goes, the more it favors Andrew because he does have some of those over-the-top type cards.
Unwavering Initiate, finally trading away for that Steadfast Sentinel.
Yeah, Andrew's two biggest bombs are Unesh Cryosphinx Sovereign, and then I mentioned earlier that he has the
Overwhelming Splendor.
The Overwhelming Splendor, exactly.
All right, so this is Kyle's probably biggest creature, Bitterbow Sharpshooters, here on turn 5.
There's his bomb.
Andrew just casting an end of turn Hieroglyphic Illumination, going to find some more cards. It looks like he's already up to either 7 or 8 mana in hand and on board. I see a Sandblast in his hand, an island, potentially a desert.
Yeah, Bitterbow Sharpshooters is his biggest creature.
Okay. And Andrew casually attacking his 3-1 into Kyle's 4-4.
Interestingly, it also looks as if Kyle's running the full 17 lands.
Okay.
He does have 2 cycling. He's got an irrigated farmland as well as a Desert of the True.
All right, Bitterbow blocks, and Andrew's going to use an offensive Sandblast to take care of that post-combat Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs. And yeah, Andrew stabilized real well.
Yeah, that gets the job done. And Andrew is looking pretty good here in game 1 because not only is he ahead off of that early curve that just kind of worked as an offensive type curve, but he's also just pushed this game to the late game where he's advantaged anyway.
All right, Mummy Paramount and an Ambuscade is going to finish off, or rather just kill the Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs.
Yeah, one of them's become a 3/3, and then 4 power is enough to kill it, and that's going to get Kyle in for the full 4 here.
Andrew going to cycle that Desert of the Mindful and
Well, that
just
shows
draws
that
another
he's out of
land.
gas.
Okay.
Was it a land or was it
I think it was an island.
an island? Okay.
He did find a spell there, though.
Okay.
Yeah, these next few turns are pivotal for Andrew.
Yeah, we know that he has places to put his mana here. This is Steadfast Sentinel.
Nice 4/4 Vigilance.
Coming back, yeah.
And again, it's going to be on Kyle to find an answer to this 4/4.
He does have answers for it. Again, he has triple Ambuscade. Plus a few other ways to deal with creatures in his deck, but he does kind of have to set that up with just 2 2/2s out at right now. It's not really going to work.
No. Unwavering Initiate still chilling in Kyle's graveyard as well, if he just wants to spend the turn developing out his board.
Seems reasonable, but that could be a setup for a future Ambuscade potentially. But right now, he's not doing much.
Yeah.
And on top of it, his blocking propositions don't look amazing either next turn. Andrew can simply run this attack back again. 4 damage plus 3 from the Exerted Oketra's Avenger is another big chunk of life.
Kyle, though, with a decent number of cards in hand, weighing his best option here. Irrigated Farmland to start, and he is just going to embalm an Unwavering Initiate.
Why is he... Let's see what's going on here.
He didn't have access to 2 white currently.
That must have been it. Could be lining up to play 2 spells next turn.
Yep. Looks like Andrew has a Unwavering Initiate of his own, and he is going to make that attack you had mentioned. Although this time looks like no Exert on the Oketra's Avenger.
He's just offering a trade here. One card that he has in his deck is Farm to Market. He could be trying to get a 1-for-1 with that by encouraging Kyle to block here. Though I didn't get a good look at his hand, Kenji, so I'm not sure. Kyle does not have any double white spells that I see in his list here.
All right, and he's just going to take the hit for 7. Post-combat, Unwavering Initiate, and a pass from Andrew.
Wow, that was a big attack for Andrew, knocking Kyle down to 3. And even adding to his board.
Pretty good creature, too, in this scenario. One that trades away with any of Kyle's creatures and then comes back from the graveyard after the fact. All right, let's start things off with a Jeru's Renunciation tapping down Andrew's last 2 creatures.
And is it another white spell? Is this what he was setting up? Maybe another... Ooh.
It's a mummy. That's going to be exactly 9 damage if Andrew has nothing.
But it's unsummoned from Andrew Cuneo. Oh, he had it, and that's game.
Remember, Kyle was actually at 3 life there. So
yes,
he had 3 lethal creatures. Andrew had 3 lethal creatures. You can see that little smirk on Cuneo's face.
Got him, he says.
Very well played. Both players. Kyle put himself in a position to win on the following turn if Andrew had nothing.
I love how Kyle played that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because he knew he needed to sneak a win like that. And he set it up. You know, it was a big red flag when he played that cycling tap.
The sheltered thicket?
Yeah. No, the white one.
Oh, irrigated farmland.
Yeah,
sorry,
I was like, what? Like, I'm looking at his list. He knows his list. He doesn't have anything that costs 6.
Yeah.
He has nothing that's double white. Why are you playing a tap white cycle land here when you could, turn that into potentially a very valuable card at this juncture? And now that explains it. He was setting up for the win to be able to exactly attack with lethal. But Cuneo had the unsummon.
Yeah. Both players having a good little chuckle there. If you guys are just tuning in, well, it's the end of the day, but this is Grand Prix Indianapolis. You are watching the finals of the top 8. This is draft. Kyle Boggemes on the left, Andrew Cuneo on the right. Andrew had a great day 1, started 9-0 in sealed. Kyle, on the other hand, 7-2, battled his way. 3-0 in the first draft, 3-0 in the second draft, 2-0 in the top 8 draft currently. Andrew, happy to sneak in to the top 8.
Yeah, Andrew, going back into his career, he's got 2 Pro Tour top 8s, teams at Pro Tours New York in 2000 and 2001. He's got 7 GP top 8s with a win in Mexico City of this year. That was a team GP as well. He played with Ben Stark and Eric Froelich for that one. Kyle, on the other side, he was the finalist at Pro Tour San Diego 2010. That was the one that Simon Gertzen won. And, he almost made it. And, Kyle has won a GP. He won GP Cincinnati.
All right.
Yeah. So these are 2 very experienced professional level Magic players here.
It does really show. Wonder what kind of cards these players might opt to sideboard. Didn't look like they did too much sideboarding, though.
It was pretty quick.
It was very close, too. Oh, the sideboarding was quick, you mean? I want to see a game 3. I'm rooting for Kyle this time.
Nah. I'm rooting for the guy with overwhelming splendor.
Yes.
And Unesh in his deck. Go big or go home, I say.
I don't think we've seen this Unesh or the Hour of Revelation.
Oh, yeah, or the overwhelming. So we saw the splendor when we popped in.
Right, yeah. That actually won his first 2 matches.
Yep. Quite convincingly in boards that were fully built out, too.
Again, you guys can see the trophy and the finalist plaque in the background there. Players are going to draw their 7 cards, decide whether they want to mulligan or not. And immediately mulligan from Kyle Boggemes on the left. Andrew, on the other hand, looks like he has a hand he might be able to keep. Take another glance at it.
Yeah, if he does get to keep this hand, that's a really big deal for Andrew. Kyle's deck, it mulligans well. Like by all standards, his cards are fairly redundant. He's got a good mana curve, and his mana's pretty good with plenty of land. So it's not a disaster for Kyle to mulligan, but every time he does, it eats away at his ability to get that perfect curve out on the play here against Cuneo. What it tends to lead to are stumbles.
Yeah.
You miss a land drop, or you don't get to play a 3-drop on turn 3, or you run out of gas a little bit early. And, each of those things really feeds into Cuneo's game plan, his core game plan. We saw him take the initiative in game 1, but that's actually not what his deck's all about. Again, he's running a 6-drop bomb, a 6-drop sweeper, and an 8-drop bomb. He's not necessarily about make a 3-1 on turn 2 and start turning it sideways. And that's just how his draw turned out for him in that first game. And it might happen again. He could go Adorn Pouncer and start beating down.
Certainly.
But, his primary game plan on average is going to be a much longer term plan.
All right, we'll see if Kyle wants to keep his hand. And a scry.
Did not keep us in suspense there.
All righty. I'm taking a little peek here.
This is a tough decision here for Kyle. He's really tanked it out there.
And here we go. Game 2 of the finals, Grand Prix Indianapolis. Kyle Boggemes versus Andrew Cuneo. Andrew currently up in a game, but Kyle first on the board with the True Heart Duelist. Andrew with just a land and a pass. This is what Kyle wants. Gets in for 2, drops Andrew to 18. Let's see if he has another 2 or a 3-drop to follow up. It is indeed a Mummy Paramount. Okay.
No land?
No land. Oh, but a Sunscourge Champion from Andrew is just going to halt Kyle in his tracks. Gains 2 life, puts him back to 20. It's a 2-3.
Right. And, I was mentioning some of the good cards that Andrew has to combat the type of deck that's really straightforward, non-tricky deck that Kyle's playing here. He's got already a few of them in hand. Sandblast and Edifice of Authority are fantastic against Kyle.
I think I see Unesh in his hand as well. All right, Kyle's still going to send in the team here. Champion going to block the Mummy Paramount.
And a little sideboard action there for Kyle.
Gideon's Defeat. That actually is really nice versus the Sunscourge Champion, Marshall.
Yeah, it exiles, of course, and so that means that thing won't be coming back. And Kyle got in for a couple of damage there, too.
Yeah. All right, Edifice for Andrew on turn 4, who does still have 1 mana open to activate it at least once. All right, 1 brick counter, and Kyle's going to get in for 2.
But if he keeps missing land drops, all right, I can stop that sentence now.
He just had another 2-drop anyways. Binding Mummy this time. Andrew's hand looks really stacked. I see the Adorned Pouncer, which I think is the play here. Sandblast still in his hand. Unesh in his hand,
yes,
Marshall.
He needs another blue source, but
it's
if he
Overwhelming
finds
Splendor as well in his hand, Marshall.
You know what else he has? He has card draw in the form of
Hieroglyphic Illumination.
This is just basically the
gosh.
perfect hand for Cuneo to win this GP with.
Yes.
Kyle's doing everything he can, but Andrew's looking very good here.
Yeah, and another problem for Kyle, even if he ambuscades away the Adorned Pouncer, Andrew just has enough mana to eternalize it back.
He can, yes, and if Kyle does do that, it opens up the possibility for Sandblast to get some value.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, Andrew does want to keep getting brick counters on the Edifice, but it's not so important because he knows he's going to be in the defensive stance here for a while. The important part is that he doesn't get attacked to dead. There's even a chance that Andrew would trade his Adorned Pouncer for one of these 2s, like the Binding Mummy, if given the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because he's looking at his hand and just going, it's so good.
I just need to draw some lands here.
Yeah.
All right. Kyle going to send in the team.
So
looks like Andrew probably let him go to attacks.
Right. And that's a really important part of this because Kyle will have said go to attacks and Andrew will have had to say, sure. Interesting. He's going to block the Mummy Paramount, not the Binding Mummy.
Okay, so he's probably planning on just using the Sandblast on that.
On the Binding Mummy?
Yeah.
But Kyle has to have something here, right? Or does he just not mind trading?
He might not mind trading.
True. I mean, that is an Adorned Pouncer. One of the better cards.
Right. Now, a Jeru's Resolve here would be really solid for Kyle. As
to save them, which one would he save?
I think the Binding Mummy.
I do too. He's not a full-on zombies deck, as you might imagine, being green-white, but he does actually have a pretty good number of them.
A single combat trick here. Not going to cut it if he wants to save that Binding Mummy. All right, and he's just going to let that all resolve.
Oh, this is a huge swing in Andrew's favor.
Right.
He's going to drop to 14, but that's a pretty safe life total given the cards in hand and the board situation he finds
Kyle's
himself
just passing back the turn.
Oh. Remember, Kyle doesn't have tricks. He doesn't have ways to, like, there's no, on your end step, like, the best he can do is, like, cycle something.
We might see a main phase hieroglyphic illumination.
I wouldn't
Andrew.
be shocked. Yeah, he really does want to find that second blue mana source to keep things rolling forward towards Unesh.
Especially one that doesn't hurt him when he pays for it. That's an Ipnu Rivulet over there.
Yep, and he just found an island. Also a plains, but... All right, well, kids at home, it's not time to go get a sandwich because this one is not going to last that much longer. Now, Andrew's going to get his camera time here.
Of course.
But this is a very tough position for Kyle Boggemes and a very advantageous one for Andrew Cuneo.
Yeah, so Edifice is going to turn off the True Heart Duelist. Andrew's not going to take any damage from attacks, and then Kyle's just going to play a Vizier of the True on his second main phase. 7th land there for Andrew means he can play Unesh. He's going to take another damage from the Ipnu Rivulet if he wanted to do that, and he could still hold up Edifice. Instead, it looks like he's just happy to play a, an Adorned Pouncer from the Eternalized Graveyard. 4/4 double strike, Marshall.
I'll tell you what, Andrew knows what to do from this position. He's a careful player, and, he's known for playing and designing control decks, though, he'll draft what he needs to draft. But if I had to put an archetype, to Andrew Cuneo, it would be blue-white control.
Right, yeah.
Like, that's what I think of when I think of him playing Magic. And, well, that's exactly where he's sitting. And what's the dream matchup? It is green-white. They just can't do anything, right? Like, they can't make you discard your hand. They never Inferno Jet you for the win. There's just no surprises. And on top of all of that, Kyle drafted his deck specifically to be that way.
Yes.
Like, not even some weird enchantment that screws everything up. It's just like, no.
So I think Andrew actually drew an unsummon on one of his earlier draw steps.
I actually felt like that would be the case here, given
Yeah.
the fact that he chose not to play Unesh and just to leave his Adorned Pouncer up.
I think he's playing around an Ambuscade, and oh my gosh, Marshall.
If he has
if
the
he
Unsummon,
has the
it's just
Unsummon.
over. Unbelievable. Andrew Cuneo. Oh, what a blowout. Given the fact that Kyle's had mana issues too, hitting fewer land drops, he just has no play for the turn after that, and this is just a savaging from Andrew Cuneo.
Yeah, and this was on Kyle's turn, so that effectively eats up his entire turn. He doesn't get to replay the Vizier of the True. Andrew gets to untap, hit in for 8 if he wants to, which, of course, he wants to.
He wants to. He can play this island that he drew, slam Unesh.
Still hold up the Edifice. Get the mini Factor Fiction effect. Reveal, Wrath, Essence, Scatter, Island, Vizier of the Anointed, Marshall.
Well, you're looking at Andrew Cuneo about to take his second GP trophy of the year home back to Philadelphia where he lives.
And I know he practices
there's no
format
coming back.
a lot. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at Gainsay's trophies on Magic Online, and he's got a healthy little amount. Now, he's got 2 real-life trophies to sit next to the virtual ones.
And Kyle is going to extend the hand. Andrew Cuneo is your Grand Prix Indianapolis champion, taking the finals 2-0 over Kyle Boggemes with a very nice blue-white deck, Marshall.
Wow, fantastic stuff there, and Cuneo did it in his own style. I'll tell you that right now.
And that'll do it for the finals, folks. Stay tuned.